Back in Kentucky doing a hearing on labor again? I was just here. There are all sorts of other, more interesting things in Kentucky I could be covering. They are selling bison at Big Bone Lick State Park. They made a well-themed tourist attraction of a cave-in at a car museum. They built a Noah's Ark replica and made dioramas of dinosaur babies in cages. There's lots of more fun things to cover. Instead, I'm back here with this loser who thinks we need to loosen child labor standards because kids are too busy playing Mario. Ugh. Welcome to Hearing All About It, where hearings on current events are brought to you to make you a better informed person. And today we are at a hearing for HB 255, a bill in Kentucky to reduce labor standards sponsored by Representative PHILLIP PRATT. This may sound familiar, and it should. I was just here under similar circumstances in another video. But the big change this time is PHILLIP PRATT is trying to drop child labor standards. Last time it was trying to get rid of lunch breaks. In case you don't believe me, here are the similarities between the previous hearing and this hearing. Pratt's the sponsor, these two guys testify against the bill, it's the same room, Pratt uses the same justification of conforming to federal standards.
All we're doing, this bill does, is bring Kentucky in line with federal standards.
I did a whole shtick in the aforementioned last video about how crazy that is to hear from a conservative, that they want to match federal standards. But if you want to see it, go watch that video. Suffice to say, Pratt and friends want federal standards because they are lower.
First and foremost, the House Committee sub will bring Kentucky's child labor law standards into alignment with federal law. The House Committee sub will expand opportunities for 16 and 17-year-olds to gain valuable experience in the workplace, which will set them up for success in childhood.
My friends, who could argue with that? Who doesn't want to set someone up for success in childhood by giving them a job? But what standards are we adjusting? How is House Bill 255 helping 16 and 17-year-olds prepare for success in childhood?
As written, House Bill 255 eliminates the state's ability to establish its own child labor protection regulations by repealing the child labor regulation that establishes the standards for employment of minors and the current state statute that allows the Commissioner of Workplace Standards to promulgate any future protections for children in the workforce. The result of hollowing out the statutes and regulations for protecting children at work would mean that for 16 and 17-year-olds, again, just to reemphasize what Gerald said, employers could require unlimited hours of work per day, even on school days, and perhaps even during hours when school is in session. Employers could have these kids work unlimited hours of work per week, even while school is in session. And under House Bill 255, kids could work very late at night and even work third shift or overnight.
So Representative Pratt's HB 255 will reset labor standards to the Gilded Age. Does Representative Pratt have a good case for doing this?
You know, it's amazing as I look at this, people in part-time jobs actually in high school earn 20 to 25% more than their counterparts that do not have a part-time job.
Thank you, Representative Pratt, for clarifying that people with part-time jobs earn 25% more than people without jobs. Not sure what that has to do with the bill, but thank you.
And we've also looked at, as we look at workforce participation, the biggest area of dropout is youth between the ages of 17 and 25. So this hopefully will help with that.
Labor participation. We're lowering child labor standards to raise labor participation rates. Why is this even a good reason for teenagers to be allowed to work unlimited hours? Why are you bringing this up? The point of current law is to protect Kentucky's teenagers from getting exploited.
And we've heard a lot of comments today about people being able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and work ethic and the importance of it. I don't think anybody here is going to argue against that. I'm certainly not arguing against developing work ethic in our young people. But I'm also equally concerned that for every one instance or one anecdote that we can provide about somebody that succeeded, despite the odds, in spite of the odds, despite family circumstances, we have hundreds more, potentially, kids who could be exploited. And that's why the child labor laws exist, to protect these kids. And it's not for the kids that have good family support, that have good parental support. These are for the kids that are already at risk, they're already going to be exploited, they're vulnerable, and we need to be protecting them, and we need to be protecting them as much and as strongly and as often as we can.
What a wonderful summary of the purpose of government, Representative Kulkarni. When it comes to child labor, the government should form a shield to protect vulnerable youth from the ravenous excesses of those that would seek to exploit them. Here's what it looks like when businesses aren't restrained from exploiting children.
So a friend of mine that I'm very close to, my son's in business with, His dad left him when he was young. He had 2 other siblings, and when he was 13 years old, he literally worked through the summer, saved his money. His mom got a little bit of help from the state, and he literally raised his 2 brothers. It's not the ideal situation at all, but he did. He put himself through J.B. Speed School of Engineering, came out with an engineering degree. I heard him make the statement the other day about that he's trying to get his boys to not have to go through what he went through, and I made the statement to him. I said, you know, a lot of what you went through actually made you what you are today.
Yeah, I wasn't picturing someone talking about 13-year-olds working as some sort of success story, but I guess you'll do anything when pitching child labor. Also, Representative Callaway, are you advocating for that person to leave their family? Because that's what it sounds like. Another question, not to get too off track. Do you think 13-year-olds should have full-time jobs? Because it sounds like that's what you're pitching. Alright, back to the bill. Representative Pratt continues making his case for HB 255.
So with that, I think this is good to get people out into the workplace, get them some work experience, and hopefully they'll get off the couch, quit playing Nintendo games, and actually make money.
Yeah, too much Mario Brothers is worse than passing a law that allows kids to drop out of school and work full-time. And here I thought Louisville coach Charlie Strong blaming Modern Warfare 3 for a loss would be the most embarrassing video game thing said in the state of Kentucky. That'll show me not to make assumptions. Back to the hearing, there's a weird undercurrent of kids these days. We've already seen it from Representative Pratt yapping about Nintendo ruining everything, to Representative Callaway very clearly implying that 13-year-olds should be in the workforce to toughen them up for their own good. Show them how to be a man. This hits its zenith at the end of the hearing when a vote is taken on HB 255.
Representative, thank you for this legislation. I'm a yes today, but as we were sitting here listening to the arguments, I remember last year we heard the same arguments for 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds to be able to have a life-altering surgery. And today to sit here and think that we're going to be able to put them into the workforce versus life-altering surgeries, I'm an absolute yes. Thank you.
I can practically hear his inner monologue right now. Throw those boys into the mine for a 12-hour shift. A little coal dust on them and they'll stop wearing dresses and act like real men. If you cry, we'll just leave you down there longer. So using transphobia to justify a child labor bill? I was restrained making jokes while opposing the bill. This is supposed to be a fun video. Remember the Charlie Strong joke? That was so funny. Then you make a trans joke. And worse, the punchline of the joke is 10 and 11-year-olds should be allowed to work.
Representative, thank you for this legislation. I'm a yes today, but as we were sitting here listening to the arguments, I remember last year we heard the same arguments for 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds to be able to have a life-altering surgery. And today to sit here and think that we're going to be able to put them into the workforce versus life-altering surgeries, I'm an absolute yes. Thank you.
Why would you make a joke about 10 and 11-year-olds being allowed to work during your vote for a bill that strips protection for child labor? So Fun History Sock is gone. He's back in the drawer. Ready for your serious video that goes full speed? Here we go. This is Representative Pratt. He owns a small business and is the sponsor of HB 255 that ends state-level protections for child labor. This is a bit mysterious as he has testified that he treats child labor incredibly bad at his own company.
I will tell you, as a business owner, we have a lot of kids come to me and say, we would like to work for you, Mr. Pratt. That's fine, but if it has a motor on it, you can't touch it. So I quickly tell them, till you're 18 years of age, you're regulated to a shovel. And I will tell you this, my sons will tell you, and they told their friends, if you think about dropping out of school and not getting a better education, go work for Dad for 8 hours, push a shovel. You will change your opinion on that.
This new bill would enable Representative Pratt to treat child labor even worse than he already does. Considering that Pratt is pushing for unlimited hours for 16 and 17-year-olds, this would likely benefit him as youth labor is paid less than adult labor, thus making his labor pool cheaper. This is not the first time Pratt has sponsored a bill to remove protections for Kentucky workers. He has sponsored a bill that is still up for debate, HB 500, that removes minimum wage protections for Kentucky workers as well as a legal requirement for a lunch break. Representative Pratt is extremely sensitive about comments that this may benefit him.
Actually, I resent the fact you made that I did it for my company. We always will give a 10-minute break. We always will give a paid lunch break, not paid.
Pratt has spent a large amount of time in Frankfurt opposing unemployment benefit, sponsoring 2 bills to limit eligibility for it, and writing multiple columns about it. This would also likely benefit him. With all of this information, you might suspect that Representative Pratt is a believer in the Thomas Jefferson maxim, "The government that governs least governs best," as he is constantly trying to end government programs that benefit workers. You would be incorrect. In fact, on the right issue, Representative Pratt can have a very different perspective. The key determinant on whether he supports a government program is whether it helps him. This is best illustrated during the pandemic when the government launched the Paycheck Protection Program, a program of small business loans. Representative Pratt and his business took out over $280,000 in loans that were not paid back. This dependence on government handouts to keep his business afloat did not change his attitude about the role of government in society. After he had received his last check, he wrote a column opposing a child tax credit. He said that some of the spending during the pandemic was helpful and necessary. He then writes about how spending further money will have too much of an impact on the deficit and how free money isn't free. He does not, at any point in the column, disclose how much he received in government money during the pandemic, which is a violation of journalism ethics, but that is a minor infraction compared to his larger moral failings. The takeaway from this is if you want to understand how Representative Pratt will behave, you have to understand how an action will affect him. Reducing worker protections? It helps him, so he supports it. Reducing access to unemployment? It helps him, so he supports it. Allowing for more child labor? It helps him, so he supports it. $280,000 of free government money? It helps him, so he supports it. If you assumed he held consistent viewpoints like big government liberal or small government conservative, his actions would appear erratic. But using self-interest, it makes his actions extremely predictable. To wrap this up, HB 255 shouldn't pass. It will cause more students to drop out of school and work full-time, ending their academic careers and hurting them later in life. Compound that with the high likelihood of being exploited by people like Representative Pratt, and that's a highly negative outcome. That's not good for Kentucky's youth. Representative PHILLIP Pratt shouldn't be an elected representative. He can't be trusted to put the needs of Kentucky's people above the needs of his business. He couldn't even be trusted to disclose bailout money in a newspaper column. PHILLIP Pratt is retiring, but the damage he has done to Kentucky workers will endure, which I'm sure will benefit the bottom line of his lawn care business.